Good evening, Spurs supporters and fans of the beautiful game. Jason here at Axotis FC tonight at Golden Hour to talk Wolf Spurs and whatever else strikes my fancy. It has been a pretty slow day, I would say, for Tottenham news. The center back story remains essentially the same. Still don't have any new ones. The the young center back from Blackburn, Ashley Phillips, sounds like it's progressing, and maybe he's going to do a medical soon. But nothing further has been announced yet. Beyond that, Ange, has said in the recent press conferences that it is a priority for us, and expectation seems to be to get at least one or two more in, so the question is, what's the holdup, and what needs to happen to get that done? Inquiring fans want to know, and I'm sure he does as well. But beyond that, let's see. Sava on Football Heritage TV had a really good guest interview today with a Bayern supporter, kind of to get the Bayern perspective on them getting Harry Kane. And I've only been able to watch about half of it so far, but the interesting point that he made, the Bayern fan, was that he feels like drive for Harry Kane is really originating with Thomas Tuchel. It's really a signing for the manager rather than maybe a team priority kind of thing. And interestingly, he that particular fan is not particularly a Thomas Tuchel fan, and wasn't necessarily happy with the Nagelsmann ouster and replacement, towards the end of the season or mid-season, and he's sort of unconvinced. Now, would he be happy to have Harry Kane? Yeah, I think he would be, actually. But it sounded like, from his perspective, if he had his choice, his preference would actually be to get Vlahovic from Juventus. I think I just butchered the name there. But anyway, the striker that we've talked about replacing Harry Kane with, potentially, if we did lose Kane. So... kind of interesting. There was at least one other preseason game on today that was of interest to me, which was Wrexham versus Chelsea. So Poch's first game, and that was in the United States. I think the North Carolina area, maybe. And so I had things going on at the time, but I did bring it up on ESPN Plus so I could see a little bit of what was going on. And the other, it's not so much that I was interested in it from the Poch perspective. I'm generally pretty ambivalent about Chelsea, and but the main thing that was of interest to me was if Conor Gallagher would be playing for Chelsea today and how he would do, because he's a potential, Spurs have expressed interest in him in that sixth spot. I think he would be pretty good in that role, actually, and so I was curious to see how he would do. He's generally looked, in the past, I thought he looked great at when he was on loan to Crystal Palace, and but Chelsea fans generally seem to be pretty down on him. And so, anyway, I was curious to see how he would do today in that situation, or in the preseason game. And actually, he did quite well. He had a pretty nice, actually, I would call it almost a Højbjerg-esque shot into the lower corner from just outside the box, where he kind of threaded the needle. There's a variety of traffic there. The Wrexham keeper, their backup keeper at this point, got his hand on it but couldn't deflect it enough, and it went right in. So anyway, Chelsea was pretty dominant during the time I was watching. They scored quickly, and as someone who's watched the Welcome to Wrexham series and enjoyed that, I was interested to see how they would do against Chelsea. And as successful as they've been in their league, and actually it sounds like they are, favored early on to win League Two now that they're in it. The difference between Chelsea and Wrexham was quite apparent. The ability of a Premier League team to capitalize on a mistake and just score, just to punish their opponent, especially a lower league team that doesn't have the quickness, the recovery quickness on defense. It was pretty eye-opening, and so definitely a interesting matchup. I enjoy it, and actually there were unsurprisingly, there are a lot of American Wrexham fans in the crowd there. Probably just as many red jerseys as the blue Chelsea ones. And basically, I think a lot of American support has come to this project just because it's so kind of a heartwarming story. The underdog team in Wales, and actually the other thing is the two owners, McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds, are master storytellers and really good at doing what they're good at, and delegating the soccer, football stuff to the people that are good at that, and supporting them and getting out of the way. So definitely an interesting difference in ownership. So the and also just to see the levels, and it'll be interesting to see how fast Wrexham can climb up the pyramid. I would imagine it's going to be like best case scenario. It would be like a decade long journey to the championship would be my guess. But it'll be interesting to watch that and see how it turns out. Let's see, any other topics of interest? Generally speaking, I think I'm just waiting for more football news, the transfer news, and we haven't been getting it. But now I just thought about another thing that I read about today, which was that apparently Tanguy and Yves Bissouma are really getting along well, and that takes me back to some thoughts that I had about team dynamics, and how important those are to players' performance and mental health, and having kind of the friendships within the team, especially for the players that come from the international players. You have guys like Brian Hill, who haven't really been happy. Hasn't necessarily had a good network of support. Not a native English speaker, and there's a deer down there. Interesting. And so let me see if I can swing around and get this into the shot. There it is. Okay. And anyway, and so one thing I noticed this season is he seemed so much happier to be around Pedro Porro and Region. Just having those guys his age that are fun guys, speak his language, that makes so much difference in the mental happiness and effectiveness. And the other factor related to that with the team that I don't think we necessarily see from the outside with Tottenham is that my understanding actually is that like Eric Dyer is like kind of the one unifying player that can move between, he speaks Portuguese because he grew up in Portugal, so he can, connect with the Brazilian players, and he's also he can communicate with the Spanish players as well, and so he's kind of a bridge amongst the different groups that tend to kind of congregate together and form those friendships of that nature. And so I think that's one of the unsung things that we don't see. We just see Eric Dyer defensive performance not up to par. We don't fully see the squad dynamics in the locker room, etc. And so we, can't necessarily evaluate his value to the squad in quite the same way. I still think it's probably about time for him to move on otherwise. But anyway, just food for thought there in terms of kind of why he's been kept around, I suspect, beyond just his playing. And now hopefully his injuries are out of the way and he will be able to show his worth on the field as well. But that remains to be seen, of course. So I think I'll call this a wrap. And so, as always, stay well. I'll see you again soon. And remember, to dare is to do.